to our top story now. Vodacom is hitting back at the Competition Commission's data price report. It says prices have remained high through no fault of its own. The cell phone giant says the delay in allocating spectrum has resulted in them not being able to lower prices any faster. Now, the Competition Commission's report found that data prices in South Africa are excessive. MTN and Vodacom have been told to reduce data costs or face prosecution. Now, Vodacom says the Commission and ICASA have different views on pricing. It says it has reduced the effective price of data by 50% since March 2016. Right, let's discuss this further with the Competition Commission's Commissioner, that's Thembinkosi Bonagele. Mr. Bonagele, thank you very much for your time. I think you've heard in that intro, Vodacom is putting its foot down. This is not our fault. It's got to do with spectrum. If anything, they're saying they've been lowering their prices all the way down to 50% already.
The issue of spectrum is not in dispute at all. All of us have been saying the spectrum that is currently used by broadcasters must be released so that it can be used more effectively for internet services. So in other words, it be allocated to telcos. That process has been slow. And we've impressed upon government, and I think the President himself spoke about it. It's one of the priority areas for government. That's not an issue at all. What it will do, it will lower costs. We appreciate that. The issue, though, is that there are countries that have not allocated spectrum, in other words, that are in a similar position as us, that we've looked at, where prices
Vodacom
are still,
and MTN operate.
where prices are still lower. Correct. So it's not a, I think we must have an honest conversation about this. And, I don't want to get into a public spat, but because we must still engage
but it looks
with
like
Vodacom and MTN. The point I'm making is that we have to earnestly discuss with operators the issue of data costs in South Africa. This is based on evidence. This is not something that we've just thumb-sucked. We really do believe that there is room for a 30 to 50% reduction in these prices.
When you say excessive versus other countries where these two telco giants operate, what are we talking?
Well, we've used all sorts of benchmarks. We've used the benchmark to even a small country like Lesotho. Lesotho prices are lower than South Africa, and Vodacom is a monopoly there. And you can't be saying that there is so much difference between that place and here. Geographically, you'd assume that we share infrastructure and so on. So there must be an explanation for this problem. We've used all sorts of data to make sure that we are confident about the results. There's something else we did. We looked at profitability. Profitability in South Africa for both these firms is much higher than places where other places where they operate. So
that's the driver.
That's one of the. It's clear. If you look at the profit margins in South Africa, it is very clear that this is driven by lack of competition.
So we have been exploited as South African consumers. Doesn't that then open up these two telcos to penalties, Mr. Commissioner?
Potentially, it does if we prosecute and we are successful. That's not what we are after primarily. What I really would like is for consumers to get lower prices now. There is no justification for prices to be at the level at which they are. We can then talk about the past, what happened in the past, penalties for that. That's a separate debate. We've called them into a room for a discussion about the current prices, and we believe there is scope for a massive reduction.
Very quickly for me, how are you going to hold these two or these telco giants responsible if within 2 months they don't do this? You're saying you're going to prosecute. How serious are you about that? But second to that, they seem to be using the argument that your views on data costs differ from those of the regulator, ICASA. Doesn't that open you up for criticism or perhaps even something that you can't even negotiate with these telcos?
Not at all. I'm enforcing the Competition Act. And in terms of the Competition Act, excessive pricing when you are a dominant player is an offense. This is the case I'm going to be pursuing if I'm not able to reach an agreement with them within 2 years. I can discuss with ICASA. There's all sorts of things that ICASA need to do, like regulatory interventions to make sure that competition works. That's a separate discussion. ICASA is not regulating retail prices for data. Perhaps we wouldn't be where we are if they did. So I have a mandate to look at excessive pricing, and this is what I'm inviting them to look at with me. And if I can't reach an agreement, I prosecute at the end of 2 months.
Thank you very much for your time. That's the Commissioner, Themkosi Bonagele. He is with the Competition Commission. Let's check in now with the Weather Centre.